everyone who's joining us just now. Welcome to the first pre-hackathon webinar of AstraDB's Build-a-thon. We're just waiting for a few more minutes for our fellow hackers and colleagues to join in, and then we would start. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, whoever is joining from whichever part of the world, and welcome to the first pre-hackathon workshop of Build-a-thon by AstraDB. So a lot of you would be still joining in, but in the interest of time, we will just quickly start, and your fellow colleagues can join in as and when they register. But also this workshop, just in the interest of everyone who's participating in the hackathon and otherwise, will be recorded and shared in your participants guide and otherwise on the Hack Slack. So don't worry, all the information that we're going to talk about today is there with you. And if you've missed out viewing this webinar, worry not. This will also be there. This is also getting live streamed on YouTube, and we will share a recording with you. So with that, let's begin. So this workshop is the first workshop of our Build-a-thon hackathon. And today we're going to get you introduced to Cassandra and AstraDB. So with that, let me share a little bit more on the agenda of what we have in store for you today. So we start off by introducing AstraDB's Build-a-thon, the hackathon that you have joined. And in case those of you who have not joined us by now, hopefully would join us after the webinar is over. But yes, we are definitely going to introduce you to what's in store for you for this hackathon. And then obviously the introduction to Cassandra and CQL, and then the all-important introduction to AstraDB and getting started. Trust me, it's very easy, very simple, and our guest today will actually talk you through it. We then quickly talk about some quick examples of REST, GraphQL, and Document API. And last but not the least, we definitely open up for Q&A and take you through the next steps of the hackathon. Excited? You have a lot in store for you today. All right, so let's quickly start with AstraDB's Build-a-thon. What is this hackathon all about? So obviously, this is a virtual hackathon, which is going to start from the 21st of Feb to the 28th of May. You heard me right. 3 months, 3 different challenges, or should I say, set of challenges. That's right, and I'm not going to share more details with you, because there's a surprise coming in store for you in terms of the challenges every month. So 3 different months, 3 different challenges. Now you must be wondering, do I have the time to actually go through all the challenges in 3 different months? Worry not. That's why we call it the side hustle hack. You are free to participate in either one of those challenges or all of those challenges. The choice is yours. But the idea is to create magic. Yes, that's right. The idea is to build we give you flexibility and freedom to build whatever ideas you have or solutions you have based on the challenges. No restrictions, no rules, just one simple rule that you need to have AstraDB at your backend. That's about it. Now, quickly taking you through the schedule. So if you have joined us today or are actually viewing this workshop on YouTube, you are into the first workshop of AstraDB, which is Introduction to Cassandra and AstraDB by DataStax. And then we go ahead on for the second workshop, which is happening on the 18th of Feb, which is Introduction on Getting Started with AstraDB, and a very, very exclusive learning how to create a Netflix clone by our experts at DataStax. Yes, that's in store for you for the next pre-hackathon workshop. And then obviously we launched the first challenge month, which is the first challenge month release, which is happening on the 21st of Feb. And then we have the online, offline learning pathways, the first workshop, Build-a-thon workshop of the challenge month, which is coming to you on the 25th of Feb. And then we also have team formation and idea pitching, followed by mentor office hours. And then we close for submissions on the 18th of March for the first challenge. We have round 1 of judging and the winner announcement on the 20th of March. Too much to digest, too much information. Don't worry. All of this is actually available on the participants guide. So worry not, you don't have to memorize, you don't have to take screenshots. Everything is there in the participants guide. And DataStax and AngelHack is there for you. So our teams are actually there for you. So if you need any help, please go to the Hackathon Slack channel and ping us on the need help. All right. Now, how to participate? Very easy, very simple. So in Buildathon, actually, the DataStax team and the AngelHack team have tried to keep it as simple for you as possible. So there are 4 key steps with which you can actually start participating and start building for the hackathon. The first one is after successful registration of the hackathon, please join the Hack Slack. That's where you're getting all the information of the hackathon. Don't forget to sign up for AstraDB. That's really important because that's the core of building for the hackathon. Go to the website or go to the participants guide, click on the AstraDB sign up link and do sign up for AstraDB. And also don't forget to join in the DataStax Discord community Discord channel. That's where you get meet your fellow hackers or meet your fellow community members and get a lot of information. Next step. Attend at least one pre-hackathon learning workshop, or if you have missed any of our pre-hackathon learning workshops, you still have a chance. Attend any one of our learning workshops during the hackathon. So each challenge month actually has one workshop for you. So you can attend any one of those. So 5 workshops, any one is something that you can attend. Then go ahead and register your project team. You can hack solo. That's absolutely not a problem. You can either hack solo or you can form teams. Maximum of 4 members in a team. And finally, start ideating. So that's about it on how you participate. Now, the all important, what's in store for you if you actually participate? Loads and loads of prizes and swag for you. And let me just give you a quick hint. Obviously, you must have seen all of this in the participants guide or the website. But yes, if you are participating and you're winning, we have around 41,000 USD of prizes in store for you to give away into between the prizes and the swag. You heard me right. And don't worry, we actually award all the monthly winners and the grand finale winners. So here is what the monthly winners get. The first winner gets USD 2,500, followed by the runner-up who's getting 1,500, and the second runner-up who gets 1,000 as a team. So these are the prizes which you get as a team. And whoever is winning the monthly challenge and actually goes to the grand finale and wins the grand finale, which is in the form of demo day, the winning team gets 5,000 USD. The first runner-up gets 3,000 USD, and the second runner-up gets 2,000 USD. That's right. So that's what you get as a team. Now, if you've not won the hackathon or the monthly challenges or the demo day, worry not. We have a lot of other prizes to give away. The first is whichever team is actually attending all the 3 challenges, top 3 teams get USD 500 in total as a team. Now you have joined the hackathon, but may not have invited a friend or a colleague or whoever you want to hack with. Do that today, because the top 2 referrals of Buildathon actually get USD 250 as a solo contestant. Yes. And then all those people who are actually learning, taking the learning pathways and taking the quiz, each of our winners who have successfully completed, top winners actually get USD 50. individually. And now it's time for some swag. So we have a leaderboard for Buildathon. And if you want to know more about the leaderboard, just go to the participants guide. All of the details are in store. We are giving awards. We are giving points for each and every step you take in the hackathon. And so you react, you share a post, or you share a photo of you hacking, and a lot of other details like you attend all these workshops. You're getting points, and that points give you a leaderboard. That points can actually get you on the leaderboard. And if you are the top 10 hackers on the leaderboard, you get an all-exclusive AstraDB swag box. Top 20 hackers actually get a premium limited edition AstraDB hoodie. And the top 100 hackers after that get AstraDB t-shirts. Isn't that cool? We have so many prizes and swag thanks to DataStax for this hackathon. And now, without further ado, let me introduce my colleague, my friend, Raghavan Srinivas. We call him Rags, and he's going to take you through getting started with Cassandra and AstraDB. So over to you, Rags.
Thank you, Ashta. Can everybody hear me? Good morning again, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We do this weekly workshops, and typically what we do in the weekly workshops is we start off with Minty, because we know that people around the world, literally there are hundreds of people around the world who join our workshop. Today, we don't have hundreds of people joining, but hopefully we can hit 100% participation in Minty, okay? So without further ado, let me start with Minty. And then I'm going to introduce myself later. All right, can you guys see my screen first? And then I can do the Minty part.
Yes.
All right. So here's my Minty. And let me start presenting it. Okay, so let me make sure. So if you can, please go grab your phones. Might be the easiest to do it. You go into minty.com and enter the code 5817190. So please go ahead and do it. Take a moment. You can do it on a web browser too, but easiest to do it on the phone. You can even scan the QR code and you should be good to go. Let me give it a couple minutes. We usually do a Minty quiz at the very end where we give out swag, but we're not going to do that today. We will maybe at some point maybe do that, but for the hackathon, I mean. But in the meantime, Ashta, I had a question. I saw all the prizes. Are DataStax employees eligible to participate?
Rags, unfortunately, you and me cannot.
Got it. I was hoping
but we'll see if we can squeeze on some of the swag for you, definitely.
Yeah, so really cool swag, and but really, what more do you want other than bragging rights with your peers, right? I say that, we live in a golden age of developers. It's all about developers. So make hay while the sun shines, right? So let's really have some fun. And our workshops are also intended mainly to level up your skills. So, no matter what your skill is, you'll be leveled up. And I think doing, watching, and all that is great. But actually putting it into action with the hackathon is fantastic. So I think it's the ultimate. So, all the power to you, have fun, but more importantly, take this seriously, okay? So let's get started. Let's see how many people are. One of the first questions that we start with is, where in the world are you right now as we speak? I should start getting at least one response. Okay, that's good. One from India. Oh, one from Africa. That's cool. Wow, one from Europe. We have 3 continents represented already. Maybe South America, North America, nobody from North. Okay, that's good. That's cool. We have somebody from maybe Louisiana or something, or close enough. Nice. We have a couple from North America. Okay. I live in Boston. Oh, somebody from Hawaii. Oh, love to be there.
Somebody just posted on our chat that he's from UK. Yeah.
UK. Okay, got it. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. All right. I'm just curious, who that person is who is kind of west of Mexico, maybe, kind of southwest of USA, but that doesn't matter. I live in Boston. Temperatures are pretty bad at this point, negative. So I always think about where do I want to live, right? And the next question is about that. Where in the world would you, where in the world would you rather live? Okay. And let's say if you want to live in India, if you're from India and you want to just live there, just put New Zealand in there. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So I'm assuming that the person who put the dot in India, in Alaska. Yeah. And at this time of the, this is cool. Okay. A lot of people who want to live in the US, Africa, continue to live in Africa. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. But more importantly, we want some more information for you to, for us to help you in the hackathon. Okay. And this is really, have you been to any of our workshops before? It doesn't matter. We do it almost every week. No, strongly recommend you attend. Yeah, not surprised. There are quite a few who have attended. Thank you for coming. And you guys can chat about how fun it is because we keep chatting, we have fun, right? You've heard, yeah, okay. All right, that's kind of what we expected. If you haven't seen workshops, those are great resources. So I'll point you at those towards the end. What's your experience with NoSQL databases? Never used it. I have some experience. I've used it a lot, and I'm a master. Obviously, if you have never heard of NoSQL databases before the hackathon, I would probably put it as never used it, right? So I have some experience, a lot. Okay. No masters yet. Cool. Yeah, this is kind of what we expected as well. If you've never used it, no problem. We'll point you at a lot of resources. If you have some experience, maybe with other databases, other NoSQL databases, maybe even SQL, you can still carry over that information you have or experience you have onto NoSQL databases. Have you done any programming before? Yes, great. At least 1, 2, 4. Fantastic. So you guys are good. Everybody has done programming. Nobody, in our workshops, when we ask the same question, we get a lot of people who haven't done any programming before, or at least, they come from the database side of the world. So you guys are already good to go with the hackathon. Okay. I know that, even though the sample size is low, I think you're pretty representative of how it's going to be. So this is the last question, I think. What's your programming language choice? Java? Cool. Like it. JavaScript? Okay, few Javas, a lot of JavaScripts, a lot of nodes, some Python, other, not quite sure what other is, but we'll see. Undecided, perfectly fine. You have plenty of opportunities to kind of make up your mind, in the next few weeks, right? More importantly, do you have a good idea, right? That's really what it comes down to. And if you don't have programming, maybe what you can do is you can join up with others and make a team. Okay, very cool. We have quite a few, I think, JavaScript wins by a very small margin, right? But again, it doesn't really matter. It looks like people are voting multiple times, but that's fine. We kind of get the idea. Okay, so all right. With that said, I just want to tell you that DataStax does sponsor your education and certification as a NoSQL expert. In fact, we have a certification workshop coming up in the middle of February. If you kind of look through our workshops, you'll kind of get the idea of what are all the things that you can leverage and use. And almost all of these resources are free. Okay. All right. Enough of Minty. Moving on to the presentation. All right. Give me a second. Okay. So where's my presentation? hiding somewhere. I know that. Okay.
Right next to your Minty, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So start my slideshow. Okay. So my name is Raghavan Srinivas, and I work as developer advocate at DataStax. For whatever reason, people in the world have a lot of time, tough time pronouncing my name, a lot of people in the world. So I just go by Rags. Rags, not riches, easiest way to remember me. But we have an entire team, a really fairly large team. Some of them might already be on the chat, but they are on Discord, they're on every channel conceivable, to see if we can help you. Okay. And the idea is that, again, we want to up-level your skill, no matter what your skill is, right? And if you watch some of these workshops, you will see a lot of those, the same people that you saw in the earlier slide, delivering the workshops. So what the heck is Apache Cassandra, and what is NoSQL? In fact, NoSQL is not something new. It's been around for a while. But why the heck are we talking about this? We know that, enterprises and the whole industry kind of moves a little bit slowly. And I think, right now is a great moment for really making the transition from, the traditional, data center driven apps to a cloud native app. Okay. And we'll talk about what a cloud native app is. And Apache Cassandra is a whole lot. I'm not going to read this, but essentially it's a NoSQL distributed database. Okay. And the term NoSQL itself is kind of, an interesting term. It's really, some people call it as NoSQL. Some people call it as not only SQL. There are a number of different ways of kind of slicing and dicing the term. But just to let you into a small secret, the way it started was a number of people decided that SQL is not a silver bullet. It's not an answer for every app. And what they did was they wanted to come up with some fancy hashtag to be able to do, the tweets and get people in, right? And they came up with this NoSQL. Okay, and that's kind of how it started, really. So and now it's pretty much an industry of its own, right? Literally, there are so many different databases that kind of use these concepts. But really what Cassandra is about, or where Cassandra distinguishes itself, is about the linear scalability. And this is not, to be overemphasized. Really, linear scalability is very hard to achieve. You add another node, like let's say I have one node, I add another node, your performance basically doubles, right? You add a third and your performance basically increases by 50%, and so on and so forth, right? So it's basically linearly scalable, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the, in the few dozens or whether you're in the hundreds or in the thousands. In fact, my colleague actually is working, with AWS and essentially scaling to thousands of nodes to do some benchmarking and so on. But it's all on commodity hardware, right? As you know, the cloud is about commodity hardware. And actually, if you think about Cassandra and NoSQL, some of these was there even before the cloud was even a thing, right? So it embraces cloud. It makes the jump to cloud and cloud native very easy. In fact, if you look at something called as Cassandra, it's really all about cloud native apps, okay? But really about mission critical data. And again, I can't overemphasize this either. It started in Apple, LinkedIn. There are a bunch of enterprises that essentially use Cassandra. And from what I've heard, this is indirect knowledge, is that some of them have not even brought down their Cassandra nodes or data centers, as we call it, for years. And this means like 8, 10 years and so on, okay? I don't know if they've upgraded or not. Hopefully they have, but that's what it is. So how is it different from other RDBMSs or from other NoSQL databases as well? Okay, it's not a relational database. It's a NoSQL database, and we'll talk about what that means in a moment. The modeling is a little bit different, and you will see that as well. But basically, the idea is that you start with the application, come up with the use cases, then build a model, and then, the data, not the other way around. You don't want to retrofit your application to a data model. You really want to lead with the application and then go to the data model. Okay. I'm talking quite a bit about the data model because I think, this is the initial part where you'll spend some time, and actually it's worth investing some time to get the data model right, because you will see in Cassandra, actually that's quite a, I shouldn't say challenge, but you want to get it right, initially. Obviously, entities are king in, kind of the RDBMS kind of world. But really here it's about use cases and case studies. Primary key guarantees uniqueness, as you know, in the relational world. Here it's much more, and we'll see what that means in a second. One of the key things about, kind of vertical scaling, you can keep growing your whatever database to whatever point, right? But at some point it's gonna, you will reach the limit and you will have a single point of failure. In Cassandra, you have distributed architecture and some of these resilience and other concepts are automatically built in. You might have heard of something called as Kubernetes, which actually does what is called a self-healing. Self-healing has always been there with Cassandra and actually many of the NoSQL databases as well. One of the key things about a relational database is that it's ACID compliant. And what ACID means is atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, right? On the other hand, with Apache Cassandra or some of the NoSQL databases, you run into something called as CAP theorem. Okay, and we'll talk about what this is in a second, or sometimes referred to as Brewer's conjecture. But really, let's take wait a little bit and jump into that. Essentially, it's not ACID compliant, although you can approach that. It's really about joins and indexes. Really, this is really about denormalization. Like I said, the idea is that data is very cheap these days. You don't need to normalize your data. You can keep it denormalized, meaning that you can have your data repeating in multiple tables, and it's fine as long as it caters to your case study. Okay. Referential integrity is enforced. Here, the referential integrity is not enforced. Okay, so that's really up to the app. Sometimes what you can do is you can kind of do like a garbage collection where you kind of do this cleanup. But usually what apps do is they enforce it themselves. Okay, so let's jump into what CAP theorem means. There are three things you're driving on, right? If you think about databases: consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Okay, so consistency, as it says, has different degrees of consistency, starting from very strong consistency, right, where if you talk about like a reservation system or something, right, your number of seats are always going to be exactly the same as what is available. Okay, and the system could enforce it. Of course, even in any kind of scenario, in such circumstances, you really want strong consistency. But there are lots and lots and lots of applications where eventual consistency is fine. Like, let's take the example of leaderboard itself. Okay, maybe not a good example because we are talking about the hackathon, and you absolutely want to be on top of the leaderboard if you're on top of the leaderboard. But if you're not there for a couple of minutes, it's probably okay, right? You may be okay, you may be forgiving. But again, it depends. Okay, so that's consistency. What about availability? It needs to be available all the time, 24/7. That's really what it is. Partition tolerance is, sometimes what happens is there is failure. Failure is inherent in a distributed system. And if you can deal with failure, that's really what is, partition tolerance. So even if it becomes partition, your distributed system becomes partition, it still should be able to work. In general, Cassandra is considered as an availability and partition tolerance. And again, all three of these can be available, but only two of them can be available in a failure scenario. We are talking only about failure scenarios here, right? In a non-failure scenario, all of these are available, no big deal, right? But what happens if one of the nodes goes down, or one of the networking, Ethernet, or somebody pulls it out, or something like that, right? Then only two of these can be enforced, right? So in general, if there is a failure, Cassandra behaves as it's always available and it's partition tolerant, maybe not consistent, but eventually consistent, right? But you can tune the consistency level and make it more of a CP, which is consistent, partition tolerant, but it may not be available at that time, right? So there are pros and cons to each of these approaches. You can think about what like a typical ACID compliant database, SQL database is, right? It may not be available, it may not be partition tolerant, but yeah, it's always consistent. But if it's not available and partition tolerant, it may not fit your use case either. Okay, so I spent more time in the CAP theorem than I should. But really, what NoSQL is about sharding. Okay, we have a statement in DataStax. Friends don't let friends shard. Okay, sharding is hard. And I put up this Wordle. Apologies for those of you who do Wordle every day. This was from yesterday, so I took the liberty. I guess it's okay. But I also, did this for the reason that, some of these simple apps are probably great for hackathons, right? I would have loved to come up with an app like this, right? Because it's so easy to use, so everybody plays, right? But what we're going to spend in the next few slides is really talk about this thing called sharding and why you would rather do it in the platform, or rather let the platform enforce it than you do it. Okay. So you have this bunch of different nodes, right? And the oversimplified view of a NoSQL distributed database is that it's a distributed hash. Okay, so what I mean by that is I take a key value pair. Let's take a simple example of that. I hash the key to a particular node, right? And then I store it on that particular node. That's kind of the oversimplified view, right? But the problem with any kind of algorithm like that is what happens when a node goes away? What happens when you add a node? Those are the kind of things that the platform takes care of it for you. What happens if you have, keys in such a way that you end up with hot partitions? And what I mean by hot partitions is like you may have thousands of nodes, but unfortunately, the hash algorithm that you chose makes the keys all go into node one and nothing on the remaining 999 nodes, right? So what Cassandra does, it has what is called as a consistent hashing algorithm to be able to distribute it well. It does resiliency by having what is called as this replication factor of 3 or more, right? 3 is good enough, but if you really want, you can go more as well. And then what it does is, if for some reason one particular node goes down, you can still kind of work around with it. You may not get, like I said, strong consistency, but you can do eventual consistency. So what are the fundamentals of Apache Cassandra? There are a whole bunch of these. And there is no way I can cover it in 1 hour. Okay, so I only probably have let's see how I'm doing with respect to time. I probably have about half an hour. And here I'm going to just touch upon some key concepts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with some resources that you can try later yourself. Okay. So what are the fundamentals that you need to know? Like I said, data model, right? It's an abstract model for organizing elements of data. There is a critical difference between, like I said, just a primary key, in NoSQL versus partition key. The primary, versus a primary key in Cassandra. A primary key is actually used to basically store it in different partitions. But if you want, you can add an additional partition key that you will see, going forward. Okay. What is a key space? A data model. What is a key space? It's similar to relational in which you group, a number data, and you will see that in a second. Think of key space as a container. Very very straightforward. What is a table? Table is similar again to RDBMS. It's grouped into key space and contains columns. So what are rows and columns? Again, pretty familiar to most of you who have done SQL. Here we call it a CQL, which is Cassandra Query Language. Okay, and there are some similarities, to SQL, but there are some critical differences as well. It's very similar to column in a relational database. What is a primary key is used to access the data in a table and guarantees uniqueness. A partition key defines the node on which the data is stored. Remember I talked about hot partitions and how you can evenly distribute, the keys. You can do that effectively with what is referred to as a partition key and not just a primary key. By default, like I said, a primary key might be a partition key. Okay. There is also a clustering column, which is kind of cool. And again, touches upon the use cases, right? So let's say I want, let's take a very simple example, right? I have user ID, which is my email, and then I have my addresses or my friends or whatever, right? And now what I want to do is those friends are going to be probably in a clustering column because I want to, satisfy the use cases where I want to list all of my friends, maybe in ascending order, descending order, or whatever the case may be, or ones who live, in a particular continent, in a particular country. You can think of all kinds of queries like that. Okay, so there are a bunch of keys, not just the primary key. There is a concept of what is referred to as composite key, where you have keys composed, of multiple keys. So your primary key could be a composite key. Your clustering column can be different. You can have ascending, descending. When you do your select, which is a typical, SQL select statement, you can order them in ascending, descending orders. So there are different things you can do. But if you know key space, tables, primary keys, you're good to go. Okay. So here's a very simple example. I create a key space. Okay, and I name this key space with replication. Typically replication factor should be 3, but that's fine. Okay, and we will look through some of these examples in a little bit. Okay, if you want to switch between key spaces, you just say use and you provide the key space name, and we will walk through some examples. So here's a couple of tables. Okay, and you can see pretty straightforward here, right? The column 1 is a primary key. Okay, unfortunately, we don't have examples of composite key with with the primary key, but we'll get into it that during the demo. Okay, so I have a user ID, which is a UUID, and then I have first name, last name. You may be able to think of situations, right, where you want this clustering key to be ordered around last name, right? So you can say clustering keys as last name, first name. Okay. So what you would do is you would surround the user ID with a parenthesis indicating that it's a primary key, and then you'll have some clustering keys associated with that as well. Okay. I don't think there is too much here, but just an example. There's primary key ordered by user ID. Okay, and we can keep talking about this for eternity, but essentially, can I have a clustering column? Like I said before, clustering columns will follow a partition key. Okay, so the partition key is used to distribute the data, but thereafter the ordering is determined by the clustering column. So you can perform either equality or range queries, less than or greater than on clustering columns. Okay, and there is a condition that all equality comparisons must come before an inequality comparisons. Okay, and primarily all of this is done to optimize. Remember that linear scalability that I was talking to you about? All of that kind of boils down to why we are doing this way, okay? And we don't worry, you don't need to worry about searching algorithms and all that. We have optimized. Now, one of the criticisms of Cassandra, if you will, very cool to use, used in, big enterprises like Apple, LinkedIn, FedEx, and so on and so forth. But the problem is it was not easy to install, right? It was not easy to tune. It was not easy to make it multi-region and so on, okay? What AstraDB does is it takes away the rigmarole, okay, of system administration, the day-to-day backup, restore, which is kind of a pain, right? Things like that, you don't have to worry about any of those, right? In fact, Cassandra comes with a lot of utilities that you will have to install on top of just installing Cassandra, right? All of these are automatically taken care of for you in AstraDB. And this is typically what you're going to be using in your hackathon. And we'll walk through this. I have an entire walkthrough plan. Depending on time, I'll probably be able to do that. What is AstraDB? Actually, it bundles a lot of things in there, which is really cool. A Stargate front end, okay, which is an API front end. And essentially what this does is unifies a number of APIs. And here's where, as a hacker, I would get really excited. If I want to use REST, fine. If you want to use document APIs, go ahead and knock yourself. GraphQL, you're the boss, right? You can do whatever you want, okay? And it's fine, okay? If you want to use your own programming language choice and use some of these APIs, you can do that as well. But the cool thing is AstraDB already comes with this APIs front-ended, or I should say API gateways front-ended, okay? But you can use SQL shell as well. It comes with Cassandra query language. It comes with a shell, and you'll see that in a moment as well. It also provides your bulk loader, metrics dashboard, and a whole lot more, okay? But I think I'm getting ahead of myself because, there are a whole lot of things to worry about. I want to take it kind of gradually. In fact, if you attend our workshops, we try to do that consciously because, we know that you guys are not as familiar as we are. So we try to take it, one step at a time. So there are a number of examples of workshops, and I'll point that. In fact, we have a intro to NoSQL, which is coming up on Wednesday. So you have, again, welcome to jump in. Go on Eventbrite and sign up. I stressed quite a bit on data modeling. One of the cool things here is, again, we have a lot of resources for learning for you. This is one thing that is recommended. Start with this tables with single row partitions in Apache Cassandra, or tables with multi-row partitions in Apache Cassandra. And by the way, I sneaked in. If you look closely on top, we have excited to announce a 50% price reduction with AstraDB. I mean, that's cool. 50%, right? I hope, it doesn't affect my paycheck, but that's really, pretty cool. Okay. We just concluded a 4-part bootcamp. We started off with intro to Apache Cassandra. The second week was, designing your data model. The third week was, building a full stack backend. And the last week was building microservices with Cassandra and APIs. We did a very simple to-do API, okay, to-do application, I should say. We used a set of different technologies, to make it happen. Now, obviously, the investment is pretty high. If I add up all this, it probably comes to more than 10 hours, okay? So some of those parts you can kind of fast forward. But I suggest, at least if you can take a moment to kind of look at your, the design data model, I think that's great. So not only that, we have a whole bunch of resources, right? AstraDB itself, you'll see has a bunch of resources for you to get started. In fact, through AstraDB, you can bring up Git Pod. And what Git Pod is a playground. It's actually a editor, visual code in the browser, okay? And I'll bring that up if I have the time. And you can play around with it. So whether you're using Java, whether you're using Node, or whether you're using Python, it doesn't matter, right? We also have Katacoda where you can do kind of cut and paste. Okay, very, very, this has the create your Astra database and you can connect to the shell and so on. So there are a bunch of things you can do there as well. And then, of course, GitHub, right? If you want to start, you can pull it locally and set it up as well. Okay. There are a number of apps in the gallery, not just from us, but there are what we call as champions, influencers, whatever you want to call them. They have some apps as well, which gets thousands and thousands of views. So take a moment to kind of review this as well. But with that said, let's take a brief tour of Astra. I have kind of overrun my time. Let me see how I'm doing with respect to time. And then, okay, I have about 15 minutes left, which is kind of what we were thinking is going to be. So let me go to Astra. Okay, and it logged me off. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put your email. Okay, and the first time around, you may have to sign up. So just click on the sign up, right? I've already done that. So let me sign in. Okay, and you will see something like this. Okay, you will see here there are a number of databases, right? And these are the different databases. And this is kind of a dashboard view. Okay, and you will have all these databases. And if you dig in through this database, this is what I use. Has a number of different key spaces, right? So yes, just yesterday we had a workshop which essentially did spiders, and spiders are I think it was day before yesterday. Basically in Italian, I believe they're called repetisca. Okay, so if you want to connect to that particular key space, you can just do this SQL console, right? And what you will do is you will describe key spaces. Okay, and you'll see a bunch of key spaces here, right? Let me go and look at repetisca. Okay. So all that I need to do is use repetisca. Okay. And one of the cardinal rules that I'm going to break here is never do a select star. Okay. Because what you want to do, select star is going to go to every partition and gather up things, right? You don't want to do that. You really want only to go to a partition where you think you can get the data. Okay. But since we don't have, so actually, let me do this. Let me describe the tables first before I get. So objects by game, we did a game, okay? And let's see what's in there. So like I said, from objects, okay. I need more coffee. By game ID, I should have picked something. All right. So you can see here, there is a whole bunch of like game ID, what kind it is. Is it a player? It's a food, or it's a brick? So you can think of this as a game where, players are playing against each other and so on. Okay. So what I can do is I can describe the table. Actually, let me do this. Let me see if I remember I believe it's just this. Okay, so this is basically a table, right? And you can see here, game ID is UUID, and the primary key is game ID, kind, and object ID. Okay, so that's the primary key, and that's kind of how the partition also happens. The distribution happens, right? So this is a composite key because I have multiple keys here, right? And so on, right? And basically, it talks about what is the replication factor, and I think it may be 3, but I don't know where it is. Let me see. Am I kind of overlooking it? Somewhere in there. We'll see it. Okay. But let's go back. So this is the SQL console. Okay, and you can do, like I said, select star. There are a number of commands you can do, and we did all that before, right? Okay. Or I can also do something like this, right? Use to-do items. I think to-dos. Okay, so now I switch to key space to-dos. Okay, and again, describe tables here. You can see there's only one item called to-do items. Okay, and you can kind of think about what this, you probably infer what it is, right? Select star from to-do items. Okay, you can see here, there is a test, the item ID, whether it's completed or not, some offset that's being used, and there is a title, okay? Blah, 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 finish, John is John, whatever, okay? So you get the idea, right? How do I create a database? I should have probably started with that, right? But it doesn't matter. So I can go ahead and create a database, okay? And I brought up one. This was another workshop we did just recently. Just make sure I have the right one. Okay, so here you can see it kind of walks you through how to create the database and so on and so forth, okay? So it even tells you what kind of database you want to create, okay? So I'll create a database called demos and e-commerce, okay? So go back to my Astra database, demos, e-commerce. Okay, and that's all you need to do. So you can provide any region. Typically what we recommend you do is pick something. I live in Boston, so I pick something in the US East, and I create the database. And that's it. That's all there is, okay? So now if you go back to your dashboard, right, you will see that this is coming up. There is a demos that's just created, which is in pending state. Okay, so you can kind of look through this. This is going to come back, active at some point. And once it's active, then what you can do is you can create, the different tables. You can see here. I'm not going to walk through all of this, but essentially this is kind of a shopping cart, right? And you can create a table where the primary key is, you can see here, the parent ID and category ID, okay? So parent ID, category ID. I'm just looking for an example where you have a clustering key, okay? And let me see if there is a clustering key. And you can see here, this is a great example of that, right? So you can specify the clustering by product timestamp and product ID, okay? This is a composite key, and essentially kind of caters to the use cases. And then you can insert values, so you can kind of play around with this. I'd be happy to do this at some point of time, but I don't think I have too much time. So let me go back to my database, to my Astra, and some of the things I really wanted to show was the sample app gallery. Very cool. Okay, just click on that, right? And all that you need to do to try this is, just click on learn more. Okay, and one of the cool things here is you can just open it as we speak. Okay, I'm going to open it in a new window because I just want it in a new window. And you essentially will be able to play around with this in your Git Pod. This is just ultimate. It's like candy to a kid for a developer, right? And what this does is it automatically installs a lot of stuff for you. And you can see here that this is an IDE. In fact, it is an IDE. It's Visual Studio Code, okay? And you can play around with this. Here's my source, okay? And you can look at my index, pretty straightforward, right? And then you have, usually what we do is we have this env.example. And what you do is you copy this to a .env, you copy these values from Astra and paste it in here. And all of those instructions are provided to you in this readme.md, okay? So the readme.md will walk you through all of that. It tells you how to copy, and you'll be good to go, okay? So a lot of things that you can do, in the Astra DB console, okay? So a couple of other things that I want to highlight on. Let me go back to my workshops. Okay, you can kind of look through this, and if you want to connect via a program, there are a number of ways of doing this, right? You can either do the document API, GraphQL API, REST API, or you can connect using a driver. Okay, so if you want to connect using, like, let's say Python, for example, you'll have to download a bundle, which makes it very secure to be able to connect. So we recommend this strongly, and that's the only way you can do it right now. Or what you can do is you can go into REST API, okay? And a nice trick here is just you can click on the Swagger UI. Okay, so it brings you to the Swagger UI, and you can try them yourself. Like, for example, let's say I want to see all the key spaces. So let's say I just want to get all the key spaces, right? So all that I need to do is I need to do try it out, right? I need to get the token, which you can get from creating a token, and you can figure it out. It's pretty straightforward. Or many of the workshops walk through that. Okay, I've taken the token and I've cut and pasted it here. Okay, so I'm just going to use that and put it in here. And hopefully, if I execute this, I should be able to see all the key spaces. You can see here all the key spaces, right? I have data point, I don't care about all that. The to-dos, the to-do list, the Draptiska that we saw before, right? The native Java and so on. And it shows here that, what data centers, so you can distribute these different key spaces in different regions, all of that by the magic of Astra, right? You don't have, Astra will take care of that for you, okay? To be able to distribute it, one of the key things I forgot, and usually we do this in workshop, is that you don't have to put a credit card, okay? So with $25, you can get, which is what the monthly credit free you get. If you hit more than 25, which I've never hit so far, and most of my colleagues say they've never hit, okay? So you should be able to get started. No credit card required. All that it requires is your email, so that we kind of send you notices if you need to, maybe if there are some security breaches, things like that, right? That we need to keep you updated. And whenever a database kind of rolls from active, from standby to active or vice versa and so on, we communicate that to you. Okay. With $25, you get a lot. I know that, it's probably good enough for the hackathon, but if you really feel like that's probably not enough, you can do a live chat and sweet talk, whoever is there to give you a little bit more. You can certainly do that. In fact, I told them to be ready, right? I am from DataStax, just saying hello, and you can get some responses if you're coding at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? And you want some help. We definitely have help. Maybe it'll take a few minutes, but you will get it at some point of time. Okay. What all did I miss? Should we go back to the presentation? Oh, there it is. I got a response right away. Oh, one of the things that I forgot. All right. One of the things that I forgot was, let me go back to the dashboard. Okay. And let this go away. Okay. And what you can do is you can also get, let's look at this workshops itself. Okay, you can look at the health, so a lot of metrics there. What kind of requests you got, last 30 seconds, last 1 hour, and you can kind of look at all of this, the 99p, the 80. There are a whole bunch of stuff. All of these are available at the click of a button, right? So very cool. And I completely ignored the streaming workshop that we did, or streaming that I talked to you about. You can even use Pulsar, I believe. I believe the rules for the hackathon is that you should at least use Astra once, right? Something like that, right? So you can. You're welcome to use. You're welcome to use Pulsar and Astra, okay? And you might get some brownie points. I have no idea, but maybe you will, okay? So with that said, let me go back to the presentation and try to wrap this up. I know it took a little bit longer. Okay, so the way to get started is just click on this, Astra Devs Buildathon, and it should take you to Astra. The first time around, you may have to, like I said, sign up, but after that, you're good to go, okay? with that, let me hand this back to Astra.
Thank you so much, Rags. I think that was very, very insightful for at least people like me who are just starting, just starting ahead with Astra. I believe it was very insightful. And to all our friends who actually are much more aware of Astra and Cassandra than me, I hope you learned a thing or two more or new about Astra and Cassandra.
So, right, so I'm going to ask you a question. Did DataStax pick you because it's so close to the Astra name? I'm just thinking. I was like, wow, okay. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Just a lucky coincidence, right? All right. I think in the interest of time, since we are almost done with the time, we would probably not have Q&A right now. I believe all the questions that are there would have already been answered on the chat. We're also having a help session. Need a help in case any of you participants are looking for some questions which are unanswered. Please go ahead on the Hack Slack and just chat in. Our mentors are there. All of us are there for any questions that you have. So in the meantime, we would just go ahead and talk about the next steps of the hackathon. But before that, I would just like to thank all the users who have joined us through YouTube. Thank you so much for joining in. And now we'll go ahead.
Astra, do you want to share your presentation? Yeah.